Welcome to the Way Left podcast. I'm your host, Brian Vitello. I've had a busy summer, doing a lot of things with my son's baseball travel team, different events all over the country. So I haven't done as many pods, and it's probably good because it gives me a little sanity check. Lets me catch up on the news. Lets me catch up on what's going on. Reminder, go out to thewayleft.com. Check all the fun stuff out there. Follow me on YouTube. Follow me on X. Follow me on Spotify. Follow The Way Left. And on YouTube, it's at The Way Left BV because there's another Way Left out there. It's two black guys. They have a great pod. That's not me. So today, I wanted to talk about something interesting that I was reading, over the past few weeks. Tucker Carlson unveils 10-point manifesto amid third-party speculation. Tucker Carlson's unveils 10-point manifesto amid third-party speculation. So let's just talk about Tucker Carlson for a minute. Why do I want to bring this up? So he talks about he wants to help build a third party. He's done with Republicans. He's never liked Democrats. He was quasi at the beginning of his career. But this is the same guy who promoted Trump, bought into Trump, and then with the election conspiracy was thrown under the bus, rightfully so, fired by Fox, said he couldn't wait for that fucking monster or something like that for Donald Trump to get kicked out. Then he goes back, does the orange fellatio, goes back to Trump, and now he hates Trump, right? So he is flip-flopped on everything. He's a lot like a Joe Rogan or a Megyn Kelly. These people that seem to flip-flop based on some sort of woke, cancel, just can't make up their mind. Whichever way the wind blows, however we get as many clicks as possible, that's his philosophy. This is also a guy that said Putin is running Russia better than Biden ran America. That said, it's great. He went to the grocery stores. It's awesome. He doesn't back Ukraine. He does have a dislike for Israel. This is the man who said he'd rather live in Russia than he would live in the United States. He would rather live on an authoritarian regime. That just gives you some perspective on who this guy is. This guy interviewed Nick Fuentes, the Groyper, the right-wing fascist, white supremacist, admitted celibate. The guy who actually hates Trump now, too. I don't know where everybody came on Trump. I don't know how anybody ever saw anything in Trump. I can't psychologically analyze it. I'm not an expert. I still can't believe that he was elected twice. It is amazing. It is crazy and it is silly. And we could go through all the things that Trump's done, but we're going to focus on these 10. And I'm going to tell you where I agree and where I don't. He doesn't go deep foundational here. First, he wants to help build a third party. He invited Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie, two kind of Tea Party, crazy right wing. They broke from Trump. Marjorie Taylor Greene left. Thomas Massie, who voted like 98% of the time with Trump, but said went overboard on certain things like the Epstein files. They've suddenly found their political god, and maybe there's a third party. I don't believe that. I would hope for more pluralism and more parties. We've had those in the long distant past. We don't have them now because of money in politics. That is a separate issue in terms of campaign reform, super PAC reform, Citizens United, freedom of speech, all those issues. Okay. So Tucker said any successor to America's faltering political system should begin with a shared understanding of what the country should be. So this is what Tucker Carlson thinks it should be. Fair is his first one. And this is from Axios. Everybody's covered this. The same rules should apply to presidents, federal agents, and elites such as Jeffrey Epstein, whose impunity Carlson casts as emblematic of an Epstein class enriching itself through a corrupt system. Well, I've always agreed with that. Now, the Supreme Court has basically said there are a lot of things that the president is immune to. Congress oversees itself. So I've talked about this in previous podcasts, ethics reforms and penalties, not only for the Supreme Court, who doesn't even have those type of reforms, not only for Congress, but for the president. Now, you have the ability to throw the president out, right? Impeach him, and then have him removed. Now, impeachment is the first part, then removal is the second part. You need a bigger majority to do a removal than you do an impeachment. We definitely need more fair rules. Now, this applies to everything. So, for example, if I got sued by Elon Musk and there was some legitimacy to it, but I knew I was right, or I wouldn't be able to fight him, right? He has all this money. Our system is built for those in power and those with money, which seem to be more and more going towards each other as we see the inequality rate greater than it was in the Gilded Age, the late 1800s. That would be the robber baron age, the one that Donald Trump talked so glowingly about, which was awful for everybody, basically 90%, the bottom 90%, which is where we're at now. The rules have never applied that way, but I like the idea here, the circumstance here, ethics reforms, enforcement, things of that nature. The Epstein class is a whole different, separate thing, and that will be investigated after the blue wave this coming November. Please vote, even if you're going to vote right. Vote, always vote, always vote, always vote. There will be some sort of blue wave, at least in the House, maybe in the Senate. If the House does, then they will head the oversight committee and they will be able to go after some of the Epstein class, some of the things that are going down. So I believe in fairness. I'm going to agree on number one with Tucker. How you go into that, how that lays out, we may differ, but yeah, I believe with fairness. Sovereign is number two. Carlson claimed Israel pushed the U.S. into the Iran war through bribery or threat or both, while describing foreign lobbying, corporate control of government, and high interest debt as forms of slavery. Okay, I'm not going to use the word slavery. Let's talk about sovereignty. Okay, I have said clearly that I disagree with Netanyahu, that I disagree with the far right in Israel, that I disagree with what's going on in the West Bank and the illegal settlements. His right-hand man, I think Ben Gvir is his name, has said all Palestinians are terrorists. I disagree with their implementation of Gaza. I do understand their retribution from the Hamas attack on October 7th of 2022. I think it was 22 or 23. AIPAC should be declared as a foreign lobby, just like any other foreign lobby. We've talked about this. Corporate control of government. He's absolutely right. I don't know that he really thinks the same way I do. So the TikTok deal is quid pro quo. It was not put out to bid. Donald Trump actually violated the Supreme Court, who said it should have been disentangled from ByteDance, who is the owner from China for the algorithms. They weren't disentangled, and then he sold it to his buddies, mainly to the Ellisons from Oracle. I think Mark Andreessen and Horowitz were involved, and probably Elon Musk. So I believe that we should have corporate control. There are a lot of ways to go about this. High interest debt as forms of slavery. Clearly what we've done, and again, go back to my podcast about the road to debt with Reagan, which is one of my first 5 podcasts, starting with Reagan, the trickle-down economics and what's happened since then. And now people are really talking about this because we're talking about wealth inequality. We're talking about billionaires tax. Clearly, and high interest debt comes down to that people can't afford to live, so they have to borrow. Now we have high interest debt because of a lot of different reasons. I agree with the idea. I don't know if the word is sovereignty. I think that there is too much influence. There's a simple solution to a lot of the fairness and sovereign part. And what is that solution? That solution is political reform across the board at the federal and states levels. And this is not the Save America Act political reform. I can talk about that separately. Political reform in terms of money and politics. A man like Elon Musk shouldn't be able to give $250 million or over $250 million to a Republican super PAC and then get a job at Doge and then eliminate things and then leave and then notice that there's no audits or anything ongoing with Tesla or SpaceX. And then, of course, he does a Elon Musk and SpaceX do an IPO and then basically get preferred status with the New York Stock Exchange to be included in our pension funds and into our 401k plans for index funds immediately where they're supposed to wait. Of course, that's a problem, but it starts with real reform. And whether we'll ever get that from the right or the left, right? The criticism of Nancy Pelosi doing insider trading is real. The criticism of anybody doing the insider trading is real. Clearly, what Donald Trump is doing is manipulating the markets illegally to do insider trading. He should be prosecuted and thrown in jail. I have a separate podcast coming up called Gulags for MAGA, and we'll have fun with that. So in some ways, I agree with the sovereign part, right? I don't know completely. I'm not going to say I completely agree with anything, but I'm not going to sit here and say I don't agree with this. So I'm just going to say I agree with number 2, sovereign. Number 3, productive. America should rebuild farming, manufacturing, and craftsmanship while rejecting an economy dominated by finance, real estate, speculation, surveillance systems, and weapons. Generically, I agree completely with this sentence. Okay. We have become a service industry economy. We have reduced manufacturing, the ability for individual farmers or small farmers to survive. The trades are actually coming back, and we can't even educate enough people to do that, such as HVAC systems, such as electrical, such as plumbing, such as just real home construction, deliberate home construction, EV implementation in terms of solar. We don't even have the people for that. And so he says, reject an economy dominated finance, real estate, speculation, surveillance system, and weapons. The military-industrial complex exists. A perfect point of this is 2 of the biggest, and I don't remember who it was, let's say it's Raytheon and Northrop Grumman, have come out and said they don't want to set up the United States to send weapons to Ukraine because they don't want Ukraine figuring it out and doing it more cheap. That's basically what they said. They don't want us to steal their technology. China steals our technology. We steal technology. They don't want to do it because they don't want to get rid of that gravy train. They talk about McLean, Virginia, which is like a supremely expensive area where most of the people that work there work for the DoD or are private contractors from the private companies that work with the weapons. We've seen Palantir grow. We've seen all these other companies, these quasi companies. We see Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump get no bid contracts on companies that didn't exist for like drones and things. That's a whole different problem. We should reinforce manufacturing and rebuild farming. How do we do that? We don't do it through tariffs. We do it through, you do have a base level tariff that the world works with. So you have a base percentage. So let's say that percentage is 10% across the board. Just as we should have a corporate tax rate of 15 to 20% across the board. But if Bessent got rid of that, we had that with Biden. They got rid of that. So now the incentive is for 0% across the board for corporate taxes on an international basis. And there's more to that, so don't take that generically. How do we rebuild farming, manufacturing, and craftsmanship in America? Well, it does start at the educational level. There are a lot of things that we can do to help with that. Generally, that means that we need government and private to work together. The problem is the private has taken everything over. So, for example, dominated by finance. Well, it's dominated by about 5 companies. Real estate speculation is now dominated by about 2 or 3 companies. This is all about Amazon and BlackRock or Blackstone or whichever one of those manipulative groups. And then you have the industrial complex. And then you have Palantir with surveillance systems. The idea is that we're creating quasi-oligarchies. We have created quasi-oligarchies in all these. So when you talk about Monsanto, when you talk about Bayer, when you BAYER, when you talk about what that means to farming, it's impossible to disentangle them because we haven't done anything with enough with antitrust, enough with proper government investment. Now let's remember Biden tried to do this with the Infrastructure Act, which was bipartisan. Trump got rid of that. He tried to do something with the CHIPS Act to control chips to foreign countries, to countries like China and UAE. Trump got rid of that, gave that technology to UAE, quid pro quo, and got $500 million put into his World Liberty Financial. So yes, I agree with this. How we go about that. These are generic, fair, sovereign, productive. Great. Beautiful is his number 4. Carlson alleged that urban planners deliberately uglified American cities and portrayed brutalist architecture, graffiti, public drug use, and violent crimes as deliberate attacks on the public. I don't even know how to break this down. Alleged, so Carlson's opinion is that urban planners deliberately uglified American cities. That's bullshit, the deliberate part. Uglified is all based on your opinion. Graffiti everywhere is not good, but urban graffiti where they have it set up, I think, is beautiful. Public drug use and violent crime. Those are problems, right? I supported marijuana legalization. I support it. I can tell you the one thing I don't like about it is Denver smells like a joint. And when I was a kid, I kind of liked that smell. Anymore, I just think it's silly. Everywhere I go. If I go to Target, it smells like a joint. If I go to the gas station, 7-Eleven, it smells like a joint. If I go to a bar outside, it smells like a joint most of the time inside. So he is very harsh, and his idea of solutions is to incarcerate. Do we need investment in infrastructure? Do we need beauty in that infrastructure? Do we need planning? So, for example, I've talked about in Denver, Colorado, every fucking house should have solar on it. Should be part of our plan. So, do we need urban planning and infrastructure? Biden tried, Trump threw it out. I'm not blaming either one. I mean, I can blame Trump for a lot. Beautiful, sure. I'd probably go about it a way I would describe it differently. This is a guy that said he liked Moscow, said that Putin was better than Biden at running a country. So I will agree with beautiful. Again, fair, sovereign, productive, beautiful. I'll agree with all 4 of those. I don't know if those are really part of a 10-point plan that I would put together. And I would probably state things a little bit different on these. Beautiful, I would definitely state different in how we go about that. We need better infrastructure. We need better trains. We need better mass transit. We need better EV locations. We need more the roads, the bridges, the water planning, the deserts that we're creating in the West. There's a lot to that. The government has to be involved in that, and there can be some private to it. Number 5, healthy. Carlson embraced RFK Jr.'s food agenda. Let me just stop right there. RFK Jr. is not a scientist. He is an environmental lawyer. He is a former 15-year abuser of heroin and talked about it being great. Talked about snorting cocaine off of toilet seats. I get it. I've done a lot of drugs too. This is the guy that's running it. He is a vaccine denier. He is a liar. He's a philanderer. So I'm going to disagree with healthy no matter what. Do we need some? Look it up. Dr. Michael Greger. He's a vegan. And he only talks about human tests. He won't talk about tests on animals. I'm not telling you to be a vegan. But if you want to listen to people on health, one, we need a variety. RFK Jr. should not be one of them. He's a hack. He's a joke. He's a conspiracy theorist. He's a bad all-around dude. His entire family has disowned him. Now, you may not like the Kennedys, but not even Trump's entire family disowned him. Mary Trump, his cousin disowned him, and rightfully has talked about his psychology. So, do we need better health? Yes. Do I agree with anything that Carlson's going to say here? He said widespread use of drugs such as Xanax, Adderall, and SSRIs have left Americans half-addled. Do we have abuse of pharmaceuticals in this country? Yes. We allowed pharmaceuticals, and we could talk about health overall. So if I would have a category of health, and I would have health reform, I would have Medicare for all and some quasi input into that. I would talk about the corporate agenda. I would talk about the United Healthcare's denial services. Why that guy got shot, not justified. Luigi Mangione is a murderer, and he committed an assassination. I do not agree with that. But he went crazy because of the system that we're in. So I would have a health agenda, but there would be no RFK Jr. mentioned, and it would be much broader in context. Honest. So this goes back to fair. Government officials should be punished for lying to citizens, and most classified records, including on the JFK assassination and 9/11, should be open. So he doesn't say the Epstein files there. That's funny. That would be, if he's going to say most classified records, I would say first on your list would be the Epstein files. Do we need some things not to come out in a certain way? Yes. There should be people in place. And there should be limits on that. And we definitely need to get that information at some point, but that doesn't mean it immediately has to come out right away. So I do believe in transparency and honesty. Government officials should be punished for lying to citizens. Absolutely. We definitely need ethics. Like we talked about earlier, this connects back to the fair part, and to just corruption in general. So do we need honesty? Yes. The way he goes about it, he didn't even mention Epstein when he says including on JFK assassination and 9/11. Maybe he mentioned Epstein on his talk. I try not to listen to him. I just read about him because he just bothers me. Do we need honesty? Sure. It goes along with fairness. It goes along with ethics. It goes along with rules, ways to prosecute, ways to disbar, ways to remove that are legitimate and done by an independent counsel. Optimistic, number 7. Carlson argued that having children is a biological imperative and the foundation of long-term thinking, while blaming aging and childless elites for policies that disregard future generations. That doesn't sound very optimistic. So what he's pushing on people is that everybody should have a baby. Everybody should get married, have a baby. And I guarantee you this is connected to his Christian clock. And he's seen demons in his bed with his dog and got scratched by him. This guy says a lot of shit. I want to be optimistic. I think it is to be realistic, an optimist and a realist. You don't need to be negative. But his argument that children are biological, yes, we need future generations. How do we support those future generations? We don't have family leave. Women have to go back to work after a paid family leave in this country. We don't have health care for all, right? Colleges are costing $40,000 to $80,000 a year to go to. But it's a biological for long-term thinking. He's blaming all the elites for policies that disregard future generations. And I imagine he probably brought up leftist in that, or left, or Democrat, or progressives. I don't know that he did. I do want a realistic vision and an optimistic vision, but we aren't addressing the underlying issues that make people confident that they can't afford houses, right? If you're generation Z or Alpha, millennials, Generation Z, and then Alpha, you're frightened by what's going on because you can't afford school if your parents don't have money, right? Or you don't get a scholarship. You can't afford rent or a house unless you share that with multiple people. The American dream can modify. Maybe home ownership is not the solution. I've always thought that. I've owned homes, so I get it. But I've also rented for long periods of time. And actually, financially, it really helped me while I was growing my business to be able to sell the house I had and then go into some debt, but rent and not take the obligation of a house. Cost me a little bit more, but I didn't have to take care of the house. There are both ways. But the point is about being optimistic is just having babies is not the solution. We do need a replacement rate, which is about 2.2, I think. 2.2, don't quote me, 2.1, over 2, and I think ours is below that. And of course, now that we have put up a wall and we are incarcerating everybody and their brother, whether they're legal or illegal, and sending them to gulags, our growth rate has actually gone down in the U.S., which is not a good thing. Now, there is a limit, right? There is a limit to the WHO. GDP always has to go up. Your population always has to go up. There has to be a balance. So there's a guy on X that always says he'll basically say nothing's worse than abortion. That's his view. I don't agree with him. But let's say nothing's worse than abortion. This is also a guy who doesn't want the government involved at all. So he's more of like a libertarian abortion advocate. I don't think he's super right-wing. He's a pretty intelligent guy out of Oklahoma. I won't tell you his name. Not some famous name. My point to him would be is, okay, so let's get rid of abortion. Let's say that everybody agrees, no abortions. So the people that get pregnant at 16, we're going to have those kids. Who's going to support them? The people that are raped. Who's going to support those kids? We're going to put it on them. The people that have kids that are handicapped. Um, women that could die because they're having kids. What are we going to do with our foster, our adoptions? What are we going to do with childcare? Women, basically, the workforce job numbers went down in the summer because women had to go home. Women need to work in the environment that we've created. And women need to work in general, because I'll be honest, I want women to run the world for a while, because I'm not real positive about some of the things that men across this world have done. So I have a kid, but I haven't done the replacement of 2 or 3. I think it's great. There's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of cost to that. I am realistic. So I don't agree. So I agree with, and I'll go back through. I don't agree with this optimistic take, this whole biological imperative, and the elites, and blah, blah, blah. Elite policies. We have child tax credits. People should be having kids like crazy, but we're going to get rid of those. So, number 8, wise. Schools to teach how the physical world actually works and what he called unchanging facts about human nature. So there's nothing unchanging in nature. So I don't agree with that, including innate differences between men and women. So now he wants to go into, he's afraid of the trans community. He says, rather than credentials, screens, and technological facts. I don't know what he means here. I don't agree with it. Wise education reform in some way, shape, or form. Looking at it at a state by state, you have to look at it. There's all sorts of stuff that goes into this. Yes, education is important. How we teach education is important. How we identify how that works for everybody. If we can't feed them, if we can't give them childcare, it's hard for them to get educated. So wise, I don't agree with his approach there. Decent. The U.S. should apologize and pay restitution for killing non-combatants, reverse Trump's Department of War rebrand, and stop funding allies that commit what Carlson called genocide, citing Israel. Decent. Okay. The U.S. should apologize and pay restitution for killing non-combatants, especially in the Trump era, especially what they're doing in Venezuela. I can agree with this discourse with Trump. I can agree with it with a lot of ways that, as Chomsky would say, is it hegemony or survival? Is it domination of the world, or are we trying to survive? Obviously, Iran is hegemony. Obviously, Venezuela is hegemony. Obviously, Cuba is hegemony. It's not survival. Department of War is a joke. It doesn't need to be rebranded. It actually can't be named that. And once they're out, it will be back to the Department of Defense. Stop funding allies that commit what Carlson called genocide. So Israel in particular should be treated no different than any other country in terms of how we have our policies, and we have to review those anyway. So decent. Do we need a restructure of how we have soft power around the world in terms of how we share resources and share intelligence, how we share military? Absolutely. Is Israel at the top of the list? Well, they are now because they put themselves there. Supposedly there was a threat against Trump, an assassination attempt. He hit in a food cart, went in a different plane, sent his other people in the other plane. So if it got shot down, he wouldn't be in it. It's come out that basically that came from the Israelis, and that the CIA said there was nothing to it. And of course, Trump took Benjamin Netanyahu's advice on that. Decent, sure. United. Carlson called for halting immigration until the effects of AI become clear, ending benefits for undocumented immigrants, and making English the sole language of federal documents and ballots. So I completely disagree with all this. I don't even know what to say. Look, you need an immigration policy. What you don't need is no immigration or too much immigration. There is a balance. When we talk about having kids, when we talk about replacement rate, when we talk about growing GDP, when we talk about an environment for a country to progress, we need to consider at least 3 factors. Replacement rate. How are the people having kids? How do we support them to want to have kids, to want to have families? Immigration. We need immigrants from all over the world. just as other countries want immigrants from the U.S. So we need an immigration policy. Can we let every single fucking person in the world into the U.S.? No. But we can't stop everybody from coming into the world. AI become clearer? AI may never become clear. So I completely disagree with this. We also need to talk about emigration. How many people are leaving our country? They have to be balanced together. So an immigration reform, talk about replacement rate, the human condition, the growth in GDP all need to be encapsulated. But when he says halting immigration, fuck you, Tucker, I don't agree with that. Okay, so let's summarize. Fair, same rules, apply to everybody, ethics reform, some way to prosecute and hold people accountable, I agree with. Number two, sovereign, kind of agree with here. Foreign lobbying, corporate control, high interest debt. I don't like the word slavery, but generally agree with sovereign. He especially equates it to Israel and their undue influence through AIPAC, which I agree with. Productive, I agree. America should rebuild farming and manufacturing. How we go about that. And does that mean to isolate ourselves? So he wants to isolate ourselves. He wants no immigrants in, and he wants to create an isolationist philosophy and rebuild it. That ain't going to work. It's never worked and it never will. Beautiful. I don't agree with his take on this. Says it's deliberately uglified American cities. Again, this is a guy who said he loved Putin and Moscow over Biden's America. But he didn't say Trump's America, which... So I agree with 1, 2, and 3. Beautiful. I don't agree with his take. Health. Do I want health in my plan? Yes. I don't agree with anything he says, most of what he says here. If he brings up RFK Jr., then I don't agree with it. I don't want quacks. And you'll go down your Fauci route and everything else. I'll take Fauci 100,000 times sideways over RFK Jr. Honest. Sure. Government officials should be punished for lying. Honest. I'll agree with that. So I've got 4 out of 6. Optimistic. I don't like his frame here. Biological imperative. Having children. There is an imperative to have replacement. But there's a found, and he blames elite policies with disregard for bullshit. I don't like his take there. So I'm 4. I've agreed with 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 7. 8, why you should teach how the physical world actually works and what he called unchanging facts. Sure, I need education reform. This one would be close, including innate difference between men and women, which means he gets into the trans thing. They talk about the differences between men and women. We all took that. Do you need exposure to the LGBT community? So I won't agree with him on this. So I'm 4 out of 8. Decent. Sure. Changing Department of War. How he says it, again, I don't agree across the line. Decent. So I'm 5 out of 9. United. He calls for immigration, halt immigration until the effects of AI become clear. And English is the sole language. Okay. No. So I'm 50% on these. The Big Picture by Axios. Carlson has become the intellectual hub for a small but vocal faction of MAGA exiles who say Trump abandoned the America First agenda by launching the Iran war, mishandling the Epstein files, and allowing Israel to exert too much influence over U.S. policy. What they don't mention is tariffs, right? What they don't mention is his grift. They talk about how he's worked with Israel and he went into the Iran war, and that's not America First. They didn't really say this last year when he bombed it because they thought that was a good thing. But now that they've gone in the real war, that it's a bad thing. So, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's been part of this, says, we don't have good health care. Where's America First? America First is infrastructure, but we don't do that. So, and he is the intellectual hub for a small but vocal faction. Small. I mean, he's got Massey, Joe Kent, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yeah, that's pretty small. And I think he's smart. I don't think he's an intellectual. I think he's a clickbait chaser. Of course, the White House ripped him on this. Of course, everybody's wrong except for Scott Bessent and Donald Trump. We all know that, right? They're the smartest people ever. Howard Lutnick is, oh man, who could be smarter than him? I didn't go to Epstein Island. I did, but I went with my wife, my kids, and my nannies, so it was okay. I took my kids to Epstein Island, even though I knew he was this guy. But when I got interviewed about it, the Republicans made it so that it wasn't under oath, but we had to take the Clintons under oath. We need Scott Bessent, who says everything is Biden's fault except for the things that work, and I'm not sure what's working. And Donald Trump, the orange ass clown, who essentially is a civilly convicted rapist. He's a civilly and probably criminally sexual assault. He pleaded 500 times of the fifth on his 34 count felony conviction. People voted for this guy. He's the smartest ever. It's the greatest ever. Everything's the greatest ever. And Tucker Carlson bought into a lot of that, a ton of it. I want to read this because, hey, let's see what the idea is out there. I said I agreed with 5 or 10. Does that mean I agree 50% totally? No, but I think the ideas, and some of the ideas I didn't agree with, I just don't agree with where he's coming from, but you need to address it, like health, like education. So that's it. That's Tucker Carlson. Look it up, the 10-point plan. You need information from both sides. This is the way left, about being progressive. This is left of center. Okay? You got DSA, Democratic Socialists, you got progressives, you got liberals, you got center left. Shit, I would include center right. Everybody is a never Trumper or a reform Trumper now, except for the people that are still in Congress or at the White House. The people in Congress have sold out. Bill Cassidy sold out. John Cornyn is sold out. He's protected by a sycophant in Todd Blanche, the Department of Justice. Come over. Go left to where you are, right? Do you need to go left if you're a Democratic Socialist? You don't, because then you're a communist. Do I believe in socialism? Yes. Do I believe it is a tweaked form of socialism? Yes. Do I believe in progressive policies? Yes. Just like I believe in progressive tax rates. So think about it. Read about it. Enjoy it. Want to have more of these? I'm going to start kicking them off. I keep saying that, but I'm getting impassioned again, and I need a little break from baseball because I had a lot of it summer, but it was a blast. And I thank you for watching this episode of The Way Left.